The last time I saw Uncle Bale, he was sitting outside his crumbling house, mumbling to himself. His once proud frame was thin and weak, his hair completely white. But it wasn't his age that scared me, it was his eyes. They were hollow, like he had seen something that could never be unseen. The beginning of the trouble. Uncle Bale was my father's elder brother, the man everyone in our village seemed to fear. He was tall, loud, and always quick to remind people of his status. He had a wife, Amina, and 3 children, but he didn't treat them well. Amina was a kind woman, but Uncle Bale treated her like she didn't matter. He shouted at her in front of everyone, calling her lazy and useless. The way he treated his children was even worse. He barely noticed them, never played with them, and never cared if they had eaten or gone to school. "They're your problem, Amina," he'd say, waving his hand like brushing away a fly. One day, Uncle Bale decided he was done with his family. It happened out of the blue. He packed his belongings into a small bag, left some money on the table, and walked out. Amina begged him to stay. The children cried, clinging to his legs, but he didn't look back. Not long after, rumors started spreading. Uncle Bale had married another woman in a nearby town. Her name was Tola, and she was said to be very beautiful. No one knew much about her or her family. Some said she was from a distant village where people whispered about strange things happening at night. Uncle Bale started flaunting his new life. He built a big house for Tola, something he never did for Amina. He sent her gifts of jewelry and fine clothes. Meanwhile, Amina and the children were left struggling. They often came to our house for food because they had nothing. My father tried to talk sense into Uncle Bale. "You can't abandon your family like this," he said. But Uncle Bale just laughed. "I found happiness," he said. "Why should I go back to suffering?" At first, Uncle Bale seemed happy with Tola. He came to visit us once, dressed in fine clothes, with gold rings on his fingers. But after a few months, something changed. The first sign was when my father visited him in his new home. When he returned, his face was pale. "Something isn't right with Bale's new wife," he said. "She's too quiet. And her eyes, they don't look human." Uncle Bale stopped visiting the village after that. When people asked him to come, he made excuses. Then, rumors began to spread. People in Tola's town said strange things were happening at their house, noises in the night, shadows moving where there shouldn't be any, and animals refusing to go near their compound. One night, Uncle Bale woke up to strange whispers in his house. He sat up, thinking it was Tola talking in her sleep. But when he looked over, she wasn't there. The whispers grew louder, coming from the hallway. He got out of bed and followed the sound. When he reached the living room, he saw something that made his blood run cold. Tola was sitting on the floor, surrounded by candles, her eyes glowing faintly. She was chanting in a language he didn't understand. "Tola," he whispered. She didn't respond. After that night, Uncle Bale's life began to unravel. His business, which had been thriving, suddenly collapsed. His clients stopped calling, and he was forced to sell his house. Tola didn't seem bothered. She continued to wear her fine clothes and gold jewelry while Uncle Bale struggled to keep up with expenses. Then came the nightmares. Uncle Bale said he would wake up in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat, with the sound of Tola's voice echoing in his ears. She would say the same thing every time, "You reap what you sow." He tried to confront her one day, demanding to know what was happening. She just laughed and said, "You think you can abandon your family and find peace? Life doesn't work that way." One day, Tola packed her things and left. She took everything, his money, his jewelry, and even the little food he had left in the house. Uncle Bale was left with nothing but an empty shell of a home and the memories of his mistakes. He returned to the village a broken man. When he came to our house, he looked so different I barely recognized him. He fell to his knees in front of my father and begged for forgiveness. I was wrong, he cried. I should never have left Amina and the children. But it was too late. Amina had moved on, and his children refused to speak to him. To this day, people in our village tell the story of Uncle Bale and Tola. Some say Tola was sent by the gods to punish him for his wickedness. Others believe she was a spirit in disguise, teaching him a lesson he would never forget. Whatever the truth, one thing is clear: you can't treat people badly and expect life to reward you. Uncle Bale learned that the hard way. Now, whenever I pass by his house, I see him sitting outside, staring into the distance. He talks to himself sometimes, apologizing to the family he abandoned. And on quiet nights, when the wind blows just right, I swear I can still hear Tola's voice in the air, laughing softly, as if to remind him of the price he paid.